President Reese, members of the board, please let the record show that we have 4 board members here tonight. Jill Wilson did have a function she had to go to earlier, but she should be here any minute now.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and have our moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I move that we approve the agenda with one change of switching 4.1 and 4.2. So 4.2, School Facilities Board update would be presented prior to the technology update.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Well, are we sure that Dr. Fowler wants to go home and get out of here early? And okay, we do. Okay, yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries 4-0. We'll go on to the consent agenda item. I move that we approve consent agenda items 3.2 through 3.6.
Second.
Any questions or comments regarding consent? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That motion carries 4-0. All right. Lo and behold, we are going to go to the School Facilities Board update.
President Reese, members of the board, at this time I would like to welcome up Dr. Michael Fowler and Ben Buchholz to tell you all of the exciting things they've done with the School Facilities Board and a review of their program. Dr. Fowler.
Testing 1, 2. Bet you didn't know there was going to be a test, right? You would have studied. President Reese, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you tonight. I apologize. In fact, as you'll see, this presentation was planned for February the 13th, so sometimes it's nice to be a little bit ahead of schedule with stuff, so when things happen, you can adjust accordingly. So I didn't make that change on there. I apologize, but it's obviously not February 13th yet, but it'll be here before we know it.
Thank you for being prepared and flexible so that we could move this up since Ms. Good was not able to be with us tonight.
Yeah, I wish I could take the credit, but all the credit goes to Ben and Yolanda, who worked so hard behind the scenes. So thank you. So I'm going to get started tonight. We're going to talk initially about kind of a summary of what the SFB projects and funds that have been gained over the past few years with a few specific, not a whole bunch of pictures because I know you've seen those, but then also a little bit of history of the SFB and understand the impact that kind of some legislation that we heard last year and what that phase out looks like over the next 4 years and potentially how that would impact us, maybe more discussion about that. And then maybe a possibility to think about the impact that would have as it relates to district additional assistance. As you know, the governor has made some promises, and so far year one, he followed through, and it looks like in this budget, it's consistent, and certainly we're waiting to see, because it's backloaded, the biggest increase comes at year 5. And so certainly if the SFB does ultimately go away, that will be a concern, but if the district additional assistance is there, I think there's ways for us to accomplish some things. So that's just something to keep the board informed of, because that it will impact and influence what we do sort of moving forward. So I appreciate that. Let's see if we're going to advance this here. Can we just advance that slide, please? I guess I have to turn it on. There we go.
We're in maintenance, not IT.
No. Just this works too? No.
Yeah, look at
What
that.
did you do? This, that?
I just pushed the button.
Okay. Okay. Oh, it's a PDF. Okay. Sorry about that. All right.
It's like a chiller. Get started.
Okay.
Arizona School Facilities Board, want to review briefly some of just the founding principles, the purpose of it, the partnership, and what we're looking at in the future.
So this is a real quick overview, and really the cause or the need for the State Facilities Board arose in 1994 as it related to a lawsuit, which unfortunately is the way that most of our things get paid for here in Arizona. It starts with a lawsuit and a lot of waiting, and but it ultimately resulted in the Students First legislation, and then that led to the 1999 the building adequacy guidelines that were adopted, which led to the Deficiency Correction Fund. And for those that were around in 2001 in education, that was the one and only year that the state fully funded the plan and the program, and a great deal of money was put out. I think it was, I don't remember the number, but they fully funded that program that first year. The second year it existed, they funded it to 50% level, and by the third year, all the money was gone. So then came some other adjustments, and after schools began to say, okay, we had this plan, and now there's no money. That led to the BRG funding program that replaced building renewal. That was in 2008, and there's a lot of schools that struggled, and even still now to this day have given up on the BRG program because it's very difficult. We're very blessed in our district to have a gentleman that completed his MBA, and his specialty and focus was on the BRG. And so Ben is a state expert on this BRG program and is, really helped us. And we're going to get to the success that it's had. And I know as a board, you know about those benefits. And then fast forward to just recently, the Auditor General released the findings and a performance audit relating to the SFB, and that's when they started talking about the sunset, that it's going to be going away, and that just some legislation even in 2018, but really it's right now, unless this changes, we're talking about 4 more years of the State Facilities Board, and then the main function in terms of the building renewal is going to be no more.
And I think a lot of success comes from a good, solid board that backs the leadership here. And then for me, I have 2 great leaders that I work with to allow me to work with our team and get these things done. So with that, we're running as hard as we can in the next 4 years to get as much money. We know we're getting a little bit older and things are changing, but now's the time to rebuild it and turn to the next chapter.
Yes. A little closer.
Got it. All right. The Students First Act, fair and immediate resources for students today. Capital Finance Program was funded by appropriations from the State General Fund. It was administered by the School Facilities Board, which consists of 9 voting members appointed by the governor. The Superintendent of Public Construction serves as a non-voting member, and the board is charged with administration of 3 capital funds, which is building renewal, deficiency corrections, and new school facilities.
And this meeting is the one that occurs the first Wednesday of every month, and more often than not, Ben is there on our district behalf. Sometimes we feel like they tell us in the email, you're on the agenda, but don't feel like you have to be there, and we're like, no, I think we need to be there. And often when my schedule allows it, I will be there as well. Dr. Thomason has been when his schedule allows it. We just kind of feel like if you're going to say no to us and turn us down, look us in the eyes and tell us that. So Ben gets a lot of credit for making that trek down there, and he doesn't have a regular seat, but he's certainly a regular at those meetings. So we kind of found that being there helps as well. The Capital Reserve Fund is another piece that is in statute, and that was established to create additional monies to fund, first of all, the new facilities fund, by that statute, and it also administers the fund. The School Facilities Board and the state treasurer invest that set amount of funding for new schools based on that reserve fund. The monies in that capital reserve fund are subject to legislative appropriations and only to the deficiency correction fund. So all of that is in there. Some interesting things as we have grown as a district. We certainly have many schools that have been paid for by the State Facilities Board, but an interesting fact is we continue to submit and based on our numbers try to get the state to pay for us to build another school. Right now, the square footage of Waynesfield and Higley High School are identical. But according to the State Facilities Board, because of the way the formula is, because Higley was built earlier, Higley is, by their numbers, over capacity. Interestingly, Williamsfield, which we're talking the identical square footage, has the capacity for 525 more students. So that is really one of those head scratchers, and the only explanation that can be given is, well, the number has changed. And so when Higley was built, the per square footage allowance for a student is 94 square feet. Well, when Waynesfield was built, that number was changed from 94 to 120. So the size obviously has not changed, and I would probably argue that kids are getting bigger, not smaller, but that's not the way that the funding occurs. And so that's just an interesting aside. So that makes it really frustrating for a growing district that continues to grow when we know that there's needs out there, but they tell us, nope, there's no, based on the statute, they point to the statute, which I know that's what they're governed by, but that's what's happening with that.
Dr. Fowler, just one correction. It was the larger square footage for Higley High School, and then it was reduced for Waynesville.
That's correct, yes. I'm sorry about that.
Still doesn't make sense, though, right? Statutory funding areas, BRG, which is Building Renewal Grant, EDC, Emergency Deficiency Correction Fund, which is really hard to get anything through there, and then the NSF, New School Facilities Fund. And then all those are managed by the SFB.
And then just a quick overview of this is the state's building renewal grant process projects over the last 4 years. And you'll see the number of projects has more than doubled from 2015 through 2018, and the amount of money allocated by the state has also increased. The other thing that we included on there is the largest item that the building renewal grant funds is roofing, and that's also one of the things that we've really realized, and so tried to take advantage of that as we've worked with the SFB on those.
Right, the SFB realizes that most people look at the building, the weeds, the grass, the windows, and the paint, and they don't look at the roof. So if that's neglected, and we can see by their numbers that that's highly important. Emergency Deficiency Correction Fund 2015, only 10 districts received money, 890,000. We can see the next year, only 9. It's hard to get that money. 597,000. 2017, 5 districts at 262,000. In 2018, 4 districts for 337,000. So most deficiencies, most things that are wrong go right to BRG. So they've really narrowed the criteria for that.
And this last category here is just the new school facilities funding, and it's very limitedly distributed. As you can see, 1 district in 2015, two districts in 16, and then in 17 and 18, 3 districts. But most of those decisions have been made, and that money is pretty much spent. There's not really any more new money for schools that the state is going to be putting out there. So that's unfortunate for districts that continue to grow. And as you know, even in our district, as we have space and apartments are coming, apartments are getting built, and there's still open space, that will be a problem if the state says there's no more funding for new schools.
Additional projects that were funded by the SFB, rubberized flooring in 2016. In 2017, assessment and testing of for asbestos, basically. They went through all our schools. We came out clear. 2017, adjacent ways, they were tasked to ensure that all rules with the adjacent ways that the school districts fill in to compliance with that through their reviews. 2018, they got into some tribal reports, and then 2018, executive authority was granted to the director of the SFB. So any BRG under 50,000, they can make an instant approval. If you have an air conditioner breaks, we can't wait till the next month's meeting to get it fixed. So they're granted. Showed on that statistic in the first 2 weeks, he made 38 executive approvals, and I really think he's doing probably 15 to 20 a week now. So as more school districts are jumping in and figuring out how to do the BRGs.
Okay, and the last part, again, we were trying to keep it concise this evening. We're going to specify just a quick highlight of Higley's items. We'll look at some approved grants that have been received, how they were applied, a little bit of a project cost analysis, and then a little bit of highlight about what's coming up for the future that we're working on.
So BRGs awarded by Site, Chaparral, $2,500, Coronado, almost $300,000, Cortina, $28,000, Gateway Point, $1.5
million.
Roofing is your biggest part with that. Higley High roofing, 1.4, and then Higley Traditional. And once again, most of that's roofing. It's fallen right in line. A lot of these roofs only last what they made, the type of membrane and that they put on were really 8 to 10 year roofs. We pushed them for a lot of years and got almost 18 years out of most of these roofs. But it took a lot of work and a lot of time to do it. But we've now put on good roof, proper, high quality assemblies, which we should be able to get 20, 30, 40 years out if we maintain them properly. So it was a little bit of argument with SFB to go with assemblies we wanted, but we achieved that goal.
And then continuing, it's nice that we didn't have room for all of our awards on one slide, so on to finalizing a little bit of money at Power Ranch, but more at Santan, and then obviously Williamsfield, as you remember a couple years back, the big project that really helped to remake that campus that just looks tremendous. So that total, running total, and this, is kind of like a, if we're having a telethon, we like those numbers to keep kind of ringing up on us there. But at this point, our total is about 6.7. But I'll let Ben talk about, well, and just quickly looking at a couple examples. We just put a few pictures in there, but talk about those, Ben, for us.
Top left was walk-in cooler that we repaired at HTA. Actually, we've done a couple of those. We're just at that age. A lot of our walk-ins are starting to go. We had a really bad design on HTA on some of their flat roofs. You can see from that picture, renovation. Bottom right that's our new bearingless high-efficiency chillers. Somehow we got it where the SFB is approving those for us, which is great. They're the Cadillacs. So, in fact, next week, Santan's new chiller comes on in. So that'll be 3 schools this year.
And I apologize, I did include a picture of Williamsfield, but I know we've all been on that campus and seen those pictures, and so we're still really pleased with what we were able to accomplish there using our, some of our funds, but certainly a majority of what the state provided. And last, I'm going to let Ben share the good news about our last slide.
So we've been working for a year and a half on Coronado and Santan to get a complete weatherization package together. We're now in the bid stage, which SFB is out of money. I think they're probably down $1.5 million left in the account. And so this should fund July 1 for 1.8 for Coronado and 2.2 for Santan. So we got about 4 more schools that we're working on for the future, but let's focus right now on these.
And at this time, that concludes our presentation, but we will answer any questions that have come up or related to that.
Well, gentlemen, thank you again. And I just, doing the math here, that's $10.7 million that you guys have got that, or stuff that we would have had to pay for out of M&O and other things. You know, you can't not fix chillers, and you can't not have air conditioning, and you can't have leaky roofs. So all of those things allow Higley to put that money into the other many needs that we have. So I don't think the community can thank you guys enough. It's hard work. It's often thankless, but what a difference you two have made and your department has made for Higley and the students and the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the support, and it wouldn't be possible without a supportive board like we have, and Dr. Thomason's work with us as well. So we appreciate the team effort.
I just want to echo those thoughts, and you know, you guys don't be telling everybody this. like Benny, you should wear different outfits every time you go, because everybody's going to know. There goes Higley again. So,
Maybe try a
thank
beard.
you, thank you.
President Reese, members of the board, just to put a little bit of perspective, Higley Unified School District is approximately 1% of the student population in the state of Arizona, and these gentlemen have worked very hard. In all reality, these are all school facility board schools, so they were built by the state, and so they're responsible for them. But we've gotten about 15% of the school facility board's funds with 1% of the student population. And so these guys have gone above and beyond and done more than their fair share of work. But in all reality, these are the school facility board's responsibility because they're the ones who built these schools.
I too just want to thank you because it is hard work and we've noticed, and I just appreciate all you guys have done to get that money for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to mention, it is a lot of hard work, and it's not a simple process. There's a lot of paperwork, and you submit it, and it comes back, and they want something else, and you submit it again. It's a lengthy process, and government, so they probably do that on purpose because then people just give up. And my understanding is on some of these projects, it was like 10 submittals to get them finally approved. And you just, they want more, and you do more, and you keep with it. And I think a lot of people give up, and that's to our benefit. But with that said, it takes a lot of your time and a lot of your energy. So we so appreciate you staying the course with it and getting what we need to get. So I really appreciate it. It's noticeable in our schools, the weatherizations. Keep our schools really nice and cool and warm, and but they look great. So we appreciate all that you guys do. And also to mention, your group, your team does a lot of this work too, to help maximize the dollars we get and to help save money for the district. So you have an amazing team, and they do a great job. So be sure to let them know that we appreciate them and we thank them for all their hard work.
We will.
Thank you.
President Reese, members of the board, at this time, I would like to invite up Mr. Chuck Kelly and Mr. Robert Schroep to talk to us about some technology updates and the infrastructure of our technology program and our refresh program. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Thomason. Good evening, President Reese, members of the governing board. I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation, as crude as it may be. And I know I was approached to come up with a presentation for you guys back before winter break, and I had asked Darlene to email everyone and see if you had any specific concerns that you wanted addressed. So I've essentially just put those into a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go over those points with you. If there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any time, and we'll get those addressed. One of the responses was concerning the Wi-Fi on the campuses, and I believe this had to do with Higley High directly just from reading the question, but last year when we initially rolled out our Wi-Fi infrastructure and got all the access points live, there was really no way to test the environment without the kids logging directly on and hitting the website all at once. We don't have the capability to bring fake kids in. And honestly, without students sitting in the classroom and using the computers, we can't walk around and test the Wi-Fi because the body in the chair affects the Wi-Fi signal. So unfortunately, the only way to test it was to go live with it. And of course, we had some hiccups. One of them was an assistant principal had moved a whole lot of kids into one wing at Higley High, and we weren't prepared for that. We had spaced the access points out so that every classroom would have 40 kids in it or so. And then when they moved everybody into the 500 wing, we went, oh, you know, we were just caught off guard by it. And we had to contact the vendor and find out how to deal with that situation. So, and they were very helpful. They came in, they showed us how to turn the radios down properly, and so you wouldn't get any crosstalk. And we stumbled for a couple of days through it, admittedly. But after a couple of days, after we got the radios tuned in, as far as I know, testing went very smoothly. Everyone completed the tests on time. So I know that there were those concerns. They have been addressed, and we expect no repeat of last year's stumbling this year. So,
Can I ask a quick question while we're right here and
Absolutely.
talking about that? Have we created, I know there was those hiccups and there was some confusion. Have we created a process for site administration? My understanding of the particular issue that you were just talking about, there was a lot of discussion going on, but it took a while for them to contact you. And administration was notified of it from teachers, and there was a lag in the process. Do we have a good solid process now?
so I had Robert talk to the staff about that issue because the staff, and they've been trained to talk amongst themselves, troubleshoot it. You know, maybe one of my techs has more experience in a certain area, so they will converse amongst themselves before escalating it to Robert or to myself. But because of the issues we had with the Wi-Fi last year, specifically at testing time, they have all been instructed now, if it is in fact a Wi-Fi issue, to get me on the phone. But honestly, I don't expect that we're going to see these problems next year. That kind of moves us into my second bullet point here. There are a lot of times where students and staff and teachers, they you know, their laptop starts bogging and they're attached to a Wi-Fi network, so they say the Wi-Fi is bad. It's essentially like if your car doesn't start, you say it's out of gas. You just don't know. And then the only way that I'm hearing that we have Wi-Fi issues, unfortunately, is through Dr. Thomason saying that he heard something from one of the members of the governing board. You know, and I'll go talk to my techs. Are we having Wi-Fi issues? And nobody knows anything about it. So I did send out an email prior to winter break to all the staff, and I said, I would rather hear from you before I hear from the governing board that we're having Wi-Fi issues. So if you are having concerns with your Wi-Fi, please let me know. I received 5 responses. Of those 5, 3 of them were legitimate wireless problems. We had a teacher at Sossaman Preschool. The AP actually went bad on us. And she had reported it to the tech. Unfortunately, the tech had not gotten to me about it. He was working with our network administrator, our senior systems engineer, to replace the AP. I just happened to contact her at the time that it was still in progress being replaced, but it has been resolved. I reached out to her earlier this week to confirm she is no longer having any issues. There was a teacher, kindergarten teacher, I believe, at Gateway Point. She said that she could only get 6 kids on at a time, which is a concern, obviously. And I sent one of our level 3 techs out to take a look at it. There was no access point in her room, and the nearest access point was, for some reason, in the kitchen manager's office. Now, I don't understand why our vendor installed an AP in the kitchen manager's office, but it has been moved, and her Wi-Fi is dead on now. She's very happy with the result. The third response I got was from our Director of Transportation, Josh Crosby. Apparently his access point had stopped working some time ago, and he just lived with it. And he had one of the newer laptops like this. It's just wireless, and what he was doing was walking across the parking lot until he picked up a Wi-Fi signal from Williamsfield High School. I said, Josh, you don't need to do that, buddy. So we've also corrected that for Mr. Crosby.
So with this
Go ahead.
process, is it a ticket process that a ticket comes into you and you guys have a way of tracking that and you categorize it on
That's
what is
exactly
actually a
what it is.
Wi-Fi issue and?
Yeah, our level 1 techs at the site can professionally diagnose whether it's a legitimate Wi-Fi problem or not. And if it is, then I'm going to know about it.
Do your techs on the site do they document all the issues?
Yes.
And so they can document, these were the concerns, and then a resolution could be user error or access point. All that information's documented.
It is. We have a sophisticated web help desk where the tickets are actually entered. A teacher or a staff member can send an email, and it will automatically create a ticket, or they can go to whd.husd.org and create a ticket themselves. And that tech, the site tech will get assigned the ticket. If it's something that he can't handle, he can escalate it. And if it's wireless, like I said, I will be.
How long does it normally take for the time that they put in a ticket to the time that we get it fixed? Because a lot of teachers say that they have like a program that they're going to get ready to do, and they go to start it, and of course the Wi-Fi goes out. I hear that a lot. Like, I've made the lesson plan, and then I can't use the piece of technology we've given them. So how long is that normal, like a normal average process?
So it honestly depends on what the issue is. If it's a high priority, the internet's down issue, then the tech's going to respond as quickly as he can. I can't give you an average time. We're a little short-staffed when it comes to the school coverage. We've got more schools than we do tech. So honestly, even if a principal were to enter a ticket that his Wi-Fi is down, if my tech's not on campus, it's going to take him time to get over there.
Is it going to take days? Is it going to take weeks?
No,
I mean,
absolutely. It will be diagnosed that day.
Okay,
For
that day,
internet down,
we get a tech there to fix it and handle it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because I happened to be at a school and they said, oh yeah, the 365 was down yesterday and the teacher was getting ready to use it. And so they were frustrated and they had already called staff.
Office 365?
Yes, it went down, something went down yesterday.
Did they open a ticket?
Yes,
Oh,
they actually talked to a staff. I believe that I had left by that point, but the kids were trying to log on and it wasn't working.
what school was this?
I can't say right now.
Okay.
So afterwards we can chat.
That's okay. I will have to convene with my techs again tomorrow morning.
I was
and
going to
find
say,
out.
I think sometimes we get confused when it's Wi-Fi versus a program not working
Right.
versus the internet not working versus
Right.
the Cox or whatever CenturyLink. That, I think you cover that a little bit in here
I
too
did.
as well, that
Yeah.
it's just frustrating. And at the moment, a teacher's just going to lose her mind or his mind in the moment. And so I think that's why sometimes we.
And I can understand it's frustrating, and I wish that there were a checklist that I could provide to diagnose whether it's a wireless issue or not, but unfortunately, it's just not something I can do. There are programs that the techs have access to that they can run to verify whether they've got connectivity, but it involves an escalated level of privilege on the machine. So
Well, and the other thing is like you say, the kids all come in the classroom and they get on their phones and they get on their devices. And, to be honest, I don't know how many kids have Wi-Fi codes for our schools or are able to
every
tap
one of
in.
them.
So
Every
every
one
one
of
of them has it.
we used to change them every year.
Yeah.
But by the time, the one teacher will share it
And
with
then the
one
whole
kid
school
the
has
first
it,
day,
so, okay.
and it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
So there's no way to keep them off, but we have at least now the infrastructure and the access points are allowing for many more devices on the Wi-Fi.
I just want to share with you that this is a district laptop. It took me 7 minutes to log on. I've been kicked off twice now for server, and it took me over almost 2 minutes to download this packet.
That's current data this evening. So another email came in and said, how does the lack of Wi-Fi affect bring your own device? And honestly, Robert's going to present what we've done to upgrade the Wi-Fi. And our current Wi-Fi allows for 4-to-1, so we really don't have a lack of Wi-Fi. Another governing board member asked what the future plans are for the iPads at Sossaman. As I'm sure everyone here knows, the iPads are out of date. They're no longer supported by Apple. We have made plans now to move the stream carts from Williamsfield High School to the middle schools. The middle schools will get 15 carts each. The stream carts at Williamsfield are being replaced by the Refresh program this year. So Williamsfield will have nice new laptops. And the iPads, we're going to take them and put them down at the K-6 schools, because honestly, the only thing that we can rely on working for right now is the internet browser. And at some point, Apple's going to push an iOS update to that browser that says it's not going to work anymore, and that's going to be the end of the iPads. They'll become bookends. I am looking at using them to access our Synergy program for relocation in the event of an emergency. And I think Ken was here. We're going to be running a drill on that in the next few weeks. So. Another concern was the moving of the computer or Cal carts at AZ Merit testing time, and we just this year we started our refresh program much earlier. We normally start purchasing equipment in May, June. This year we've actually put in the order for 45 new new student carts already. So they will be landing in the warehouse, I believe tomorrow. We are going to get them wired, get the laptops imaged, get them deployed, and they will be in place before AZ Merit testing. So we will not have to move as many carts. I spoke to Anju about what's coming in, and she has put a plan together where I believe she has to move 2 carts from each K-6 school still. But she's already notified administrators about that, and they're prepared for the loss of those 2 carts.
And how many, can you remind us, how many devices are in a cart?
36.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just go back real quick and ask the question since we were talking about the iPads? Knowing those are outdated and no longer being supported. So our middle schools will go away from the one-to-one program, and we're going to be implementing the laptop carts in the classrooms.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle the check-in and check-out of that. Excuse me. I imagine we'll do it the same way that we do it at K-6, but that's a discussion I have to have with Dr. Mallory still.
But that's with the administrators, not with the kids.
Correct.
Okay.
Which leads us to the question that was asked last year of who was responsible for the Cal carts. We are deploying carts to the students from the media center. They're getting checked out by teachers, instructors, and when they come back, the devices are missing keys. The kids have taken their car keys out of their pocket and scratched their initials into the monitors. They're just not being monitored correctly, and it's a concern that I've had for quite some time, but I don't have the staff to stand there and check these laptops in as the kids return them. So I talked to Dr. Thomason again before winter break, and I kind of said, can we please get this addressed? So I then had a discussion with Dr. Schillingberg, who agreed that the site admins should be responsible for these Cal carts. And he had, on his K-12 administrator meeting on January 9th, he let those site administrators know that they are in fact now responsible for those Cal carts. So hopefully they will do a better job of keeping an eye on them.
With that, Dr. Schillingberg, I'm going back to the word process again. Have we developed a process, or is each site developing a process, how those are going to be handed out, how they're going to be turned in?
Yeah, I think the ELA and math teachers each are going to have cards in their classrooms, so the teachers will kind of be responsible. And then I think the few that they have other than that, they'll sign out from I believe, the library.
Okay, so, and when I ask about that process, so I know there's 36 on these carts, and I know it's time consuming, but if I was checking them out and I was responsible, I'd want to at least open all of them and make sure the screen's not damaged, all the keys are there. Is there a sign-off process that these have been looked at and both agree they're going out in this condition, and then when they get returned?
Well, we did talk to the principals that the teachers have to take that responsibility when their students put them away, that they put them away properly, because we're going to hold the principals accountable in the end if they're not. So I think that's the process they're going to be using. I didn't dictate how they should do it. We just told them that they had to take some responsibility because we can't have these computers coming back, with missing keys and things like that.
And I hear you on that and everything. As we continue to progress and grow and we're doing good and we're moving forward, if the sites wanted, however they want to do it, I'm good with that. I would only request that whatever the site is doing, that it be a written, documented process for their site instead of, well, this is the process we're just going to kind of do, that it's a written, documented process that they go over with their staff and everyone has that understanding. Even if that process is different from site to site, it all should be documented.
Yeah, it'll be a lot different than it was in the past because, again, these carts are being assigned to certain teachers, so they'll have them for the entire day. So they're going to want them to work, so I think they'll be more responsible for them in that sense, too.
Okay.
Which kind of takes me to a question. I understand the importance with the individual site, but this is $1 million of equipment. Why don't we have a plan in place that goes, here's my favorite word, as the gatekeeper over the equipment, so we have a master plan that all schools will follow in reference to the equipment, inventory of equipment and the process. I mean, I don't know why each school has to come with their own plan of how a machine should be returned. We should have it across the district. This is how it's returned, it's inspected, you initial it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little, I'm kind of concerned that it may be the math teacher, it might be at the libraries, which don't have librarians at. There's some of the librarians are restricted to the computer lab, so it's the tech that's doing it. So I mean, this is $1 million of equipment, and I guess that's who's inventorying this, and things are floating around. And I do hear from some of the elementary schools that their carts have gone to the high schools and they haven't seen them since. So I mean, where is our equipment floating around at any time in this district?
I think we have to let the principals have some responsibility in this. I think there is something to that, to have the principals have that responsibility. We've placed that, Dr. Schillingberg has said, on the principals. They know they're in charge of that now. And if that process, we have to let their process work. We've hired really smart people to do these jobs. I don't see any principals in here today, but we've hired really smart principals to do these jobs. They know what works at their school with their teachers sometimes too. It might not work one way at one school and work better at another school. So we have to give them a little leeway in that as well with having a process.
And President Reese, members of the board, I think the primary location for the cows would be in the teacher's classroom, and so that individual teacher will have the responsibility of letting somebody know if there's a problem. And if the administrator finds a teacher that is not taking care of that, then that would be the administrator's responsibility to work with that teacher. But the cows will be in the individual teacher's classroom, and we should be notified immediately if there's a problem with each of the individuals. But I do agree with Mrs. Reese that we should have some kind of process to notify IT or the administrator when there's a problem.
So we're throwing around the word responsibility, and I just kind of want to define that. What does that look like? So if a principal's responsible at the end of the day, what does that mean to that principal? Like something, carts are broken and things are happening. What does that mean to that principal then when it gets back to them? Are they paying for it cash? Or they, like, how does this look for us?
I unfortunately am not the person to answer that question.
And I just, one more on that whole conversation with what Mr. Vitovich is saying. Do all these computers come back to you guys at the end of the school year? Do they all come to the district office?
No, they don't come to the district office. We image them on site.
Okay, so you guys go to the sites.
Yes.
You image them. And at that time, just walk with me here.
Sure.
So during the summer, we're re-imaging them, we're fixing them because we want them in working order when the kids come.
Correct.
Are they inventoried at that time at that site by that tech?
They are. Generally, Juan Grano is doing his inventory over the summer, and he will give us a little scanner, since we're in the classrooms anyway. So we will inventory all the carts, all the technology in that room for him, and then we just give the information back to him so he can compile his full inventory.
Okay, so each site then has an inventory. Is there an inventory log? Is there a printout? Is there an Excel spreadsheet? Where is that inventory log kept?
It's kept in our asset tracking system, Destiny.
Okay, so then are the principals at that point given, okay, here's your inventory, so then they can inventory that with the teachers?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what happens after Juan enters that inventory. I know he reports to Mr. Holland. If he were here, he may have a better answer. I know Juan just asks us while we're there, can we scan the asset tag?
Okay, and the reason I ask is, I mean, Mr. Ratovich's question, it's a valid question. I mean, there's millions of dollars in technology that's all over our district, and that's okay. We need it all over our district, but we need to know what we have, where it is, and who has it. And I'm just really big on documented processes so that there's no confusion. June 1st, this is what we're doing, or June 1st through the 15th, we're inventorying these, and that there's a process to this that then by this date, we have an inventory of all our working and our non-working and what's repairable, what's not repairable. And then the sites are handed, this is your inventory, this is what, like Mrs. Kaler said, this is what you're responsible for. And then that way they know what they have and what's working and what's not working. So I'm just asking these questions because if we don't have these processes in place, it might be a time to visit that.
I agree.
And develop these processes where our sites and our techs and Mr. Holland and everyone who is handling asset management knows where these are and what working condition. And Mrs. Kaler has a valid point, and I'm not imagining we're going to go back and be like, this is a $600 computer. You know, when we say responsible, I hear you're asking clarification, but that's not what I envision. We deal with kids. There's technology. Now they shouldn't be getting their car keys out and scratching their initials in it. That should be a supervision thing. But if we if we don't know that they're not being supervised, then, I mean, obviously there's a different way to address that. But if I was a site leader, I want to know exactly what I'm being held accountable to. And that way I could walk my building and check mark, check mark, check mark. Wait, somehow they have this tag at my site. I didn't come across that. So that there is a checks and balance and that there is a documented process for these things to happen.
I agree. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm just asking, following Mr. Ritovich's question. So maybe it's time we look at a process like that.
Okay. The next question asked here is how is how is one-to-one device working with Wi-Fi, specifically at Higley High? I've explained we are actually 4-to-1 now. I did reach out to Ms. Diab to see how her one-to-one program was going, and she very candidly told me that since we rolled out those ELA and math devices last year, they no longer need to use the kids aren't bringing in their own devices for those subjects. They are, however, still using them in other classes where the instructor is supporting it. And they find it very useful in preparing for university, in Ms. Diab's words. She said that it's very successful. We were asked, are the teachers able to use ALEX and the new math and ELA programs? And I went and spoke to Dr. Stillingberg again to make sure that we weren't miscommunicating anything. We did, again, stumble during implementation of McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill, I don't believe, was ready to roll out their program when we rolled out their program. They had a lot of internal problems, but we worked through all of them. I believe we got it ready right after fall break. Everything was straightened out. Specifically on the older iPads, they had a problem supporting that. They did finally agree to make a separate landing page for those devices so that everything would function correctly. And in speaking with Warren, he let me know that because of those problems that McGraw-Hill had during implementation, he was able to get another free year of licensing out of them. So some headaches, but some reward in the end, I guess. And I put in here that since then, I see IT has received no complaints about accessing these programs. And sure enough, the day after I sent this PowerPoint to Darlene, Alex stopped working on the iPads again. So we have, for the last 2 days, been on the phone with McGraw-Hill again. It turns out they made a change to their program over the weekend that broke the iPad, the older iPads. But one of our level 3 techs spent several hours on the phone with them, and as of about 2 o'clock this afternoon, they're fully functional again. So. Email came in, says I toured Williamsfield High School this week and they have new tablets and carts. Do we have enough IT staff to maintain all of our carts? So I wanted to just emphasize that we have rolled out more than 5,000 new student devices over the last couple of years. And Dr. Stillingberg was very supportive in expanding our staff. Unfortunately, the expansion of our staff was already long overdue. So we got the expansion of the staff, and then we added 5,000 more devices. So we're still struggling with the lower priority tickets. I'm sure you're going to hear, if a teacher can't print to the workroom right next to her, it may take us a week to get to that. Honestly, we're working as quickly as we can.
With that being said, your department is so important, okay? You are the infrastructure for us, so if our curriculum and everything else is going to go forward, it's up to you guys. So if you need more staff, do we have you, I haven't seen any come forward. Do you have a plan in reference to how many more additional staff that you need to maintain this with the 5,000 additional students that have come in?
We haven't even run the numbers yet.
So when are we going to have that conversation?
Well, I mean, we've talked to MOM a few times. We've looked at other school districts to see how many IT staff they have in comparison to how many devices or students they're supporting. We've turned that information over. That's about as far as it's gotten. That we've heard that they're doing some salary studies, and one of the issues that we have is our job descriptions don't line up correctly to our neighboring schools' job descriptions, so we need to rewrite our job descriptions to make everything match. It's a work in progress.
So are we working on a regular basis and having conversations with our HR people, or is this been off the side? And
It's
we're
off to
thinking
the
about
side.
it? Sorry.
President Reese, members of the board, we also know that we are now in budgeting season, and so those staffing requests have come to us for next year, and we're going through those on a individual basis, and we're prioritizing our budget needs for next year, and those will be something that will be put on the prioritization list.
So this department has had that conversation with staffing needs for this?
Several departments have. It's not just IT. We also are looking at custodial needs. We're also looking at needs in finance. We're also looking at needs in HR. So, I mean, we have needs in several different areas. We have to prioritize those and then put those in an order of most to least needed, and then find out what we can afford, to be quite honest with you.
I mentioned, so there's talk with the governor's budget and some of the funds that he would like to put in the rainy day fund. I would hope, it's all of our hope, that some of this some of the extra money that he is intending to go in the rainy day fund does it go to district additional assistance. And if we get that, Dr. Thomason, I would concur that your staff pay scale is probably not where it should be. And I think it's a problem in technology departments across this country. We have so many devices, and those grow, and we continue to buy them, but we really don't expand the staff to handle the breakage and things like the stuff that naturally occurs. There's not a corresponding rise, and so as you're budgeting, just you have my support.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. And then I just followed these last few slides with our current staff in case you were interested. We've got one senior systems engineer. He is currently managing a project where we're implementing Mimecast, which is a program that will virtually eliminate spam emails that come in with viruses attached to them, malware, and the big one, phishing. We have been getting phished like crazy over the last year. I'm very proud to say that Dr. Thomason was kind enough to provide me with some videos from the Trust, our insurance company. I shared those with our staff. About once a month, I send out an email reminding the staff to please don't click on any links or open attachments from people that you're not familiar with. Knock on wood, we have not fallen victim to a phishing attack yet. However, this program will take that. It doesn't only stop the programs from coming in, but it also educates users. What it does, it kind of sandboxes an email as it comes in. If it's got a link in it, it puts it into a virtual space. So when the user clicks on the link, if this program is aware that there's malware attached to that, it won't open the link. It'll redirect the user to a page that says, this is why you shouldn't have clicked on that email. So it protects us at the same time it educates the users. So we hope to have that up. We were looking at the end of March. I've recently been told that we're looking at the beginning of March. That will be in place, and I'm very excited for it. Once he's done with that, we have a new firewall and a lot of software associated with that firewall, which needs to be installed. We currently have what's called a north-south firewall. It monitors traffic going in and going out of the district. It does not monitor traffic going from school to school. Our new firewall will be doing that. That's going to cut down on, we've got some kids that like to use BitTorrents. So they'll go to websites and they'll stream videos. And the only way that we unfortunately find out about it is I get an email from CenturyLink saying, hey, somebody on your campus is streaming this video. And with our current technology, it takes us a long time to figure out who it is. With this new firewall, we'll get that information before CenturyLink has it.
A quick question on that. So when do you anticipate the new firewall being installed?
October,
In October, okay. Over fall break?
yeah.
And I mean, it's no one's fault, but in the past when we've tried to implement and install, and these are great, and I love that we're looking at this stuff, it's caused other issues. Is there a way for you to test these?
So this one's actually going to go up parallel to our network, and we've got some very highly qualified consultants coming in to assist with this. They're going to kind of proof it before it goes live, which is why we're pushing it out to October, so that we can run it parallel, let the traffic go through it. And it's a mirrored state, so we'll see what it's going to do before it actually goes live on our network.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Our senior systems engineer is solely responsible for our entire infrastructure. Since he is just one man in that position, he's got, takes care of the firewall, the 2 web filters we've got 5 cloud devices, all the DNS, DHCP servers, over 90 switches, 26 routers, and 4 wireless controllers, counting the access points and all that. So he does have 2 backup personnel, our Tech 3s. They learn from him as best they can and help him when they can. If in case he's not here, we can go to them for help. But they need more training in the area. Which brings us to the Tech 3s. We've got 2 of those. Their duties range from developing new images for the new student devices as they come in to managing new software updates. Sure you're aware, Microsoft pushes out new software updates once a month. These guys take those software updates, make sure they're not going to break anything before we actually push them out. They take care of the servers in our data center. They are responsible for the entire district's backup. They manage our mobile devices, and they support our Tech 2 positions when our Tech 2 positions need help with a problem they haven't seen before. And as I mentioned, they learn from the senior systems engineer. We have 4 Tech 2s who support the file print network services at each site. They provide guidance to the Tech 1 positions for escalated issues. They take care of all of the user accounts in the network, and group membership and all that good stuff. They do provide desktop support just for the district office and landscape maintenance building. They answer the help desk, and they handle special projects when we have time to give them special projects. We've got 10 Tech 1 positions. They are assigned to 14 sites, those 13 schools and transportation. They are responsible for the configuration and repair of all technology in a classroom and administrative offices. So I just listed what they have to touch almost on a daily basis there. At these school sites, they are often called upon by the admin staff to assist with extracurricular activities. They are our most visible role at the schools, and they are our most vulnerable role, bless you, being the entry-level position. We are hiring techs with absolutely no experience because anybody that has experience won't come to work for what we pay, honestly.
That
And an
leads me to a
interesting fact-
question,
I'm
if that's
sorry?
okay. Can I have a question?
Yes.
What is our turnover like? Because obviously your field is pretty big and,
Our turnover is actually not bad.
oh, great.
At my last bullet point here, an
Oh.
interesting fact is that all of our upper level techs started here as level 1 techs.
Great.
They grew here, and
Is the level 1 position, does that turnover happen fast and quick, or are we normally like
It
keeping them?
happens faster than any other position.
That's what my question was. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing? I just wanted to add on to that. Yeah, so we promote from within, and that's really where the ones who do stay and they want to learn and they want to do the work, they'll usually become a Tech 2 or a Tech 3. Sorry about that. They'll usually become a Tech 2 or a Tech 3 in doing that, and so that's, they'll gain that knowledge, and then the Tech 1s who, don't want to learn, there will be turnover there, but it's not as much as, you would think with the pay they get, but that's where that's at. So.
Thank you.
I think I kind of covered this already.
I just
I'm
have
sorry.
one question. So
Yes.
if I understand, we hire people with no experience and we assign them to a school with all our expensive equipment and they get on-the-job training. Right?
That is correct.
Okay, so you have a school with children learning and technology needs to run and all our educational things need to take place. And so we have somebody on the job training. So what happens if the school continually has a new person all the time? They're never going to it's always going to be back and forth all the time. Is the reason that we're doing it this way is it the pay and we're not equal to what the other pay in the neighboring districts are? Is that what the issue is with this?
It is. It's pay. When we post a position, we post its salary.
Yeah.
And the responses that we get are from people that have been slicing meat at Fry's. They, maybe they went to school for it.
Technology is an expensive area, and we know that. And I think
But in reference to the other districts, okay, where are we at in reference to the other districts? For
Again,
Tech ones?
I can't give you a technical or a specific answer on that because our job descriptions don't line up exactly.
So the other districts could be paying a little bit more and bringing in experienced people to come into the schools from day one.
Correct.
Correct. Whereas have the other person that has absolutely nothing.
President Reese, members of the board, I did just have this discussion at the South East Valley Superintendent's meeting. So I talked to my peers, and Higley Unified School District is not the only district that's having a difficulty in this area. There's a lot of districts, or the Southeast Valley districts are having a difficult time finding entry-level IT positions across the Southeast Valley. And so we are having the same problem as Chandler, as Gilbert, as Queen Creek and Mesa. I did talk to them just last Friday about this issue, and it's not uniquely a Higley problem, but it's something that we know we need to address as an educational system as a whole.
Well, I'm going to guess that looking for people with highly qualified IT skills, that a school district in general, education in general, that pay is very different than in the private sector.
It absolutely
And
is.
so their interest is going, from a pay perspective, is going to be that private sector. So those who have gone to school, have formal training, they're not going to come to work for education in general, any school district, because from a technology standpoint, that pay is not even going to be comparable as it is with private sector. Is that right?
You are correct.
Okay. And I had one other question. We have that data center, and I know at one point we were hosting and using our servers to host, I believe it was the Gilbert Emergency Hospital for some time.
They rent space from the data center. None of their data is on our servers. They don't use our internet connection. They have their own.
Okay. Well, they're no longer in existence. So the Gilbert Emergency Hospital on Power Road closed.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, because we have this huge data center, that is that an opportunity for us to rent space, have additional funds. I mean, is that a potential revenue stream for us to seek out?
So whatever company took over Gilbert Hospital continues to pay rent, and they still have equipment in our room. I know there was a time where Gilbert Hospitals didn't pay rent for quite some time, and I actually got a little frustrated with it, even though it's not really my area of concern. But I said something to Gary, and he let me know that Justin, and Mom, correct me, were you involved in that, in getting that? Okay. Maybe it was Sheila, I'm not sure. It's been a while. But they did finally catch up on their rent. They declared bankruptcy, and we were one of their debtors. But we did get our money, and I know I just checked with Justin Weston no longer than 3 months ago. They are current on their rent.
So, but is this a potential other revenue stream that we could look at for other companies?
If Gilbert Hospital were to vacate, we'd have an opening.
So that's the only space we have
Yeah.
for that? It's not like we have additional space that we
No.
could seek out other renters?
No, we don't. The only reason that they're interested in the data center is because of its security. We don't have that anywhere else in the building or in the district, and they are taking up most of that rack. There's not really enough space to invite someone else in.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I mean, obviously with a partnership, and that's a revenue stream for something we had available, and I didn't know if we had more availability for.
Yeah, certainly if they default on their payment again, or their new company goes belly up, or they just decide to stop having a secondary data site, then we'll go shopping to rent it to someone else.
Okay, perfect.
Now, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Schroep, so can you talk about, so if you're moving from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, how do we help with some of the employees getting certifications or, other trainings? What do we offer, I guess?
So right now, we are paying for a subscription to, thank you, expertsexchange.com. It costs us roughly $4,000 a year for 10 licenses, and I've distributed those to the techs that are showing an interest in learning. They've got all the study material for any technology course you'd want to take. So if you want your Microsoft certification, you log on to Experts Exchange. They've got the track for that. They've got practice tests. At any point they want to be A+ certified, they can do that on Experts Exchange. The only thing that they will have to come out of pocket for is the test.
So but we could reimburse them when they pass a test. We could do that as an
We
incentive,
could,
right?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Something I'd have to discuss with Mr. Holland.
Yeah, he'll thank me later.
And I caution that because the certification stays with them and it goes with the employee. So if we pay for the certification, we pay for them to get certified to leave us. So that's my only concern on that, but worth a discussion and other possibilities. But that's my only red flag on that.
I think it sounds like the same as like an AP teacher. A lot of times we do help them get their AP endorsement. I think this sounds like the same, is to get the same endorsement.
Yeah,
right?
and we could
Isn't
put a
that the same?
stipulation that they had to stay here with us for a year.
Right,
if they paid
and
for it.
maybe
Yeah.
give something like that.
Yeah.
Because I do know those certifications do help, get further knowledge.
So this one, I covered most of this. One thing I did want to bring up to make sure you're aware of, we had recent issues right before winter break during, was it Dibbles testing? Galileo testing, where everybody was screaming the wireless is down, the wireless is down. That actually turned out to be a problem with our firewall because of our growth. So when the firewall was installed 8 years ago, we have one public-facing IP address. So everybody, every computer, every phone in here gets a private IP address, but when it hits the firewall and goes to the internet, it's translated to a public IP address. You have to have a public IP address to be able to access the internet. Our firewall does that translation. But the firewall is built so that for every one public IP address, it can only provide 64,000 connections to an internal IP address. And when we were a smaller district, 64,000 seemed like an unreachable number. But the way that we've been adding equipment, and you have to understand, every time one computer logs on and hits a web page, that's not one connection. Because you're hitting every ad that pops up is a different IP address. So for every one computer, you're probably using 10, 12, maybe 20 different connections. So we're chasing this. Why is the internet going down? Why is it crazy? So there's something wrong with CenturyLink. And we finally figured out the firewall had run out of this 64,000 ports. So we added a secondary IP address, public facing. All those problems went away. I just wanted to give that as an example of the wireless is terrible, but it wasn't the wireless at all.
I appreciate that, Mr. Kelly, and in that same conversation, I hear from our staff and these students, these are finals, it's already stressful, and then things don't work. It breaks my heart, to be very honest, because I have my own kiddo that struggles testing-wise, and then these finals are dictating transcripts for college and things like that. And so I know teachers can make, decisions on testing and whatnot, but it's a big deal.
It is.
And so I never want to lose sight that this technology impacts a student's future.
It absolutely does.
And I know that you can't possibly see and forecast every situation, but I think as a district and as a whole, we need to keep that student's mind and soul and heart totally in mind at all times, because testing is stressful.
Yes.
It just is. And when things don't work, these kids shut down, they cry. I mean, we had high schoolers crying. It just happens, and it's just heartbreaking to me. And I know it's not your fault personally, and I never mean to take it out on you personally, but it's a big deal.
It is. It absolutely is, and I take it personally if it's an IT failure. We have done things like we created an Active Directory account, AZ Merit. You may be familiar with it, and that is to prevent the delay for when a student logs into a new device. That device has to create a profile for that new student. It doesn't have a record of that student, so it takes its time and it creates a whole folder structure for that student. So when the kids log in now as AZ Merit, that profile is on every computer in the district. So there will be no delay in creating a folder structure. The kid just types in AZ Merit with the password and he's in. There's some equipment issues that I believe I've mentioned to you before. We went with HP Streams when we bought the 3,200 devices in 2016. They were a very good device, very adequate for testing, very adequate for curriculum. We put them through a series of tests before we decided on the device. The one test we couldn't put them through was the kids putting them back in the cart and slamming the door. And what's happening now is when the kids do that, the little power adapter on these HP Streams is breaking. We are still in discussions with HP to try to get them to cover this. We didn't purchase any accidental damage protection with these devices. We're trying to keep the cost as low as possible. HP is honoring warranty on some of them, but they're very sporadic. So we're in talks now with some of the top management at HP trying to get that resolved. But going forward, we're buying the Lenovo devices. They're the same processor, basically same hard drive, but they're designed with students in mind. And where the kids, as mentioned before, are popping the keys off of the laptops when they're using them, these Lenovo devices, the keys are so well ingrained in the keyboard, you couldn't get a paper clip or a pen in there if you wanted to. And the monitors are actually flexible. You can hold it by the monitor. and it'll just bend a little bit. You're not going to crack that monitor. So we did make the decision to move to Lenovo, and we bought the ADP for 5 years. So Dr. Thomason is encouraging us to take a look at Google. So we have, I think we're going to move on Power Ranch this year. We've looked at some Chromebooks. They are essentially the same price as the Windows devices. We're going to have to get a little bit of professional development for our IT staff. We're Windows people right now, but I'm sure it's nothing we can't learn. So I expect over the summer we will be pushing out Google to Power Ranch.
Is Google the smart choice, being that it's so new? Since it's such a new
There have
option?
been several school districts in the area that
Okay.
have pushed
Because
Google.
I do know that they're like the new option, and since we've had problems with the iPads because they were new, and of course Apple's phased them out, and now we went with another device, is it a smart option to go with the Google?
We're piggybacking on the success of neighboring school districts.
Okay,
I know Gilbert, for one, has had a one-to-one
okay,
with Chromebooks for, is it 4 years now, 5 years?
okay, great.
So we're going to push it out and see how it goes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And how did Power Ranch get picked? Did you ask for volunteers? Or did you decide elementary versus secondary? I'm just,
President Reese, members of the board, that was totally a decision made from a financial standpoint. Power Ranch Elementary School has more capacity and more space at this time, and the lower amount of staff and students would allow us to do a pilot program at the lowest cost.
I didn't want to just say my boss told me.
So, Mr. Kelly, this may or may not be a question for you, but so I keep hearing Canvas is coming, Canvas is coming. So does all of our technology right now support Canvas well, and is that true?
Yes,
We're just not using it, but it can be used.
yes,
Thank you, sir.
certainly.
With that being said, in reference to Canvas, I think it's very important for us to work on this Canvas program, because as our students graduate and go to colleges, they're all using Canvas. And that's a question that I see our Higley students every day at school, and I asked them, I said, as you're coming to us and doing Canvas, how are you doing here? They said they have a little hiccup, but they got to catch up, but they're getting it. And ASU is just starting Canvas now as well, so we really need to be on, in reference to this program.
President Reese, members of the board, I can maybe give you a little update on that. So 2 years ago, we went with a pilot with Canvas, and we trained all our teachers in secondary, and we kind of let them play with it, use it in class if you want. We had some experts in the schools. We let them kind of play around with it, get used to it, learn a lot about it. This year, what we've done is we brought Canvas in, and we've trained school-level experts. And those school-level experts now are working with teachers at their Canvas. I believe Sossaman Middle School actually today did a school-level PD on Canvas. And so next year, since we now have the technology in the math and English classrooms, we're going to roll out Canvas as a mandatory use in those classrooms. The one thing about Canvas that we run into is it's really hard to ask teachers to spend all this time uploading their lesson plans and into Canvas and use it when they're not positive a kid has access to a computer at home, or they're not sure if they're going to be able to check out a computer in their classroom that day. But as of next year, we know all our math and ELA classrooms will have computers, so that's the implementation we're going to do there. On the middle school level, we got Dr. Kirikos is actually here today, so it's great to recognize her, because I don't know how she did it, but she got us a great deal with Canvas, and we were able to outfit middle schools now. So we will be 712 Canvas, and since the middle schools are moving away from iPads and the teachers have used Edmodo for such a period of time, we have let the teachers know that on how to save their documents and to start uploading those into Canvas. So now there's a nice transition from that Edmodo to Canvas platform. So hopefully by the end of next school year, we will have a lot of our teachers, if not all of them at the middle schools, using Canvas as they've been using Edmodo. We will have our language arts and math teachers using Canvas in their classrooms. And as we build capacity with more technology, we're going to spread that Canvas. So like Mr. Watovich said, when our kids leave here, they do not have to learn a new LMS when they go to an in-state school. And we think that's going to be very beneficial, preparing them for that next level.
That brought up a good point, and I don't know that you would be able to answer this, because it's probably a little more site-specific, is how you said that teachers are concerned they may not have access. Do we have laptops that can, because we're going away from the one-to-one where we know students are taking iPads home. So do we have laptops available for kids to check out, to have that access at home? I know a lot of free and reduced families qualify for either discounted or free internet through multiple internet providers and things like that, so that they would have access to the internet piece at home. But if they don't have the technology, do we have something that we can allow them to check out, a laptop or something, especially?
Yeah, we talked, when we meet Monday? Yes. We met Monday and we had a pretty extensive conversation, and we did a brainstorming session with our elementary tech person, Annette, who runs CTE, because she deals a lot with that, Dr. Thomas and myself, on what are the different options we can provide to really answer your question. Because I know personally, my family probably has more money than some of our free and reduced families, and I went 18 months without a computer in my house because we just use our phone. And so that's one of the limitations, that if we have families that are on that plan, maybe they're just using phones in their house, or a less expensive Amazon tablet or an iPad. So that's something we need to address, because if we use Canvas the right way, kids are accessing that at home, and it's a way for them to connect with their content at home, and even contact within work in teams and work with their teachers via the internet at home. So it's one of the things that we are addressing, and it's something that we don't really have an answer for. In an ideal world, maybe we would sell them a laptop when they come in as freshmen. They would carry it for 4 years, and but that creates a whole bunch of problems. So we are brainstorming, discussing options, but as we are moving at a rapid pace with the kind of what we're trying to do here, some of those things we're gonna have to catch up to on the back end. But that question has been addressed and has discussed, and is gonna be continued to discuss.
And with the Google Chromebooks, is that going to be a one-to-one, or are they going to be carts just like
They're going to be
laptops?
Cal carts.
Okay.
Yeah, and remember, Canvas is going to be 712 only, so the Google Pilot is going to be elementary. And one of the things is Microsoft 365 is kind of more of a business thing, and we think that our high school students, would be good for them because they're moving into there. So we did want to pilot that Google, because it seems to be more of that K-8 thing. So we're looking at what is best for the community, what is best for the kids, and what is best for the teachers to get, the students in the best place they can to learn.
I do not like 365. It drives me crazy. But I still have it. But thank you. If we can continue to explore that as we're looking to ensure that families who may not have the hardware, the technology, accessibility at home, that these students have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think at times because we live in such a beautiful area and we have such, good test scores and good kids, we forget that there are some underlying poverty families that we need to support, and technology. I mean, a laptop in the house or a computer in the house is something that we forget, we take for granted sometimes. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I know at one point there was a program out there that was giving free computers to families in low income, and they did reach out to some of our schools and provided those to families that needed them. So that was a very nice, I believe it was Time Warner or Cox or something along those lines. So that is nice. Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for the presentation.
Certainly.
I appreciate it.
I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Robert Schroep, my Assistant IT Director, to present you with a wireless update.
Good evening, President Reese, members of the board. My name is Robert Schroep. I'm the Assistant Director of Technology, like Chuck said. And I'm here to present to you the wireless presentation to talk about where we were before and where we are now. First, a little history about what we had before 2018. We had about 20 access points at the K6s and about 30 at the high schools. These access points were originally placed in specific areas such as math, SPED, and the front offices. Those access points were running older technology using the 802.11 and 802.11b standard. This limited the connections to those access points to 12 concurrent devices per AP at one time. With this, we could not have a full class set of devices, or multiple classrooms could not use the wireless at the same time. Then, in 2013, when the middle schools were built, they were designed with wireless and one-to-one in mind, hence the iPad program. They received a full wireless network based on the popular 802.11n technology, and 27 access points were installed at the middle school, and 7 were installed in the preschool. This provided the middle schools with full coverage indoors and outdoors, and provided the density needed for the one-to-one iPad program. The K6s and the high schools still had minimal wireless coverage at the time in 2013, and the wireless equipment was at least 8 years old. In addition, the network backbone that all of the access points connect to, that was 10 years plus old also. And because of that, newer devices like the iPads that are at the middle schools and were functioning in 2013, if we brought them to the high schools and the K6s, they wouldn't be able to function at that time. And that's one of the reasons that there was not a one-to-one program at the high schools and the K6s. But there's good news for the K6s and the high schools, which brings me to the state of the wireless after the upgrade. The wireless upgrade planning for the district, it started back in 2016, and the wireless access points, at that time, the wireless access points were approved in May of 2016 by E-rate. The infrastructure backbone did not get E-rate approval until May of 2017, so another year we were waiting for the infrastructure that connects the access points to get approved. And without that, we couldn't get the wireless itself functional. But then, both the backbone and the wireless networks, after E-rate had approved both the infrastructure and the wireless, they were fully installed, configured, and implemented on February 28th, 2018. Ruckus is the vendor that we're using our wireless. You can see their picture, and that's kind of what the access points look like that we have installed in the campus. They sent engineers both on the phone and here to engineer the wireless network to function for maximum density and coverage. These new access points used the 802.11ac standard that provided greater density, bandwidth, and throughput. With this upgrade, the K6s in the high schools could now support 4-to-1 devices, and like Chuck mentioned, that's 4 devices per student or staff. Right now, I don't know if somebody who's using 4 devices at the current moment, but they can. So watch, tablet, phone, device, but that's in the future, but we're preparing for that. So these APs allowed coverage throughout the entire campus, both indoors, so all the classrooms, the front office, the gym, the band rooms, special programs, and outdoor areas, including the courtyards and the cafe. So if the students wanted to go outside in the courtyards and do some studying out there, they can use the Wi-Fi out there. So this upgrade was a 60% increase from our previous AP account before 2018. About 35 APs were installed per K6 and 60 at the high schools. We've run several daily reports throughout the year, and we've pulled together an average usage on non-testing days of where we are as far as devices connected to those access points. It's about 35 to 40 devices at the K6s connect to the APs, and 45 to 50 at the high schools. Last thing, we project that due to the ever-evolving technology and the age of the equipment in the year 2023, that it'll be time to consider another refresh of the wireless and networking equipment. And I get that number because in the state of the technology world and with our current refresh initiatives that we have in place that are 5 years, that comes out to 2023, and that's where that number comes from. We will be looking, coming up in the next few years, what that looks like. There's a lot of wireless changes that are happening in the industry right now. So we have to kind of wait a little bit and see where that's going to go, and then plan, if it's possible, in 2023, and then we can see where that wireless technology is, where the industry has pulled that. We're kind of right at the cusp because of 5G coming out for cell phones. So we're right there, and we have to kind of wait and see what the industry is going to do as far as that goes. So how do we pay for all this? What did it cost us? So we applied for E-rate, and the network and the wireless network and the infrastructure was partially funded by E-rate. It's a government program, and the district was reimbursed some of that cost. The E-rate funded the upgrade at a rate cap of $150 per student per site. So right now, the district's paid a total of $889,000 for the wireless and the infrastructure. So all the access points, the controllers for that, the network backbone that connects all of the wireless, that's in that number right there. And E-rate will reimburse us $287,000. That's been approved, but it has not been received yet. It takes a while for them to, get us the money. And the net cost to the district, total cost after the E-rate reimbursement, will be about $602,000. So this E-rate funding allowed the district to get the wireless and the infrastructure it needed to support the growing educational technology initiatives in the district. Without this, we couldn't have those 5,000 Lenovo's and Stream devices at our campuses now. So, and have the math program and the ELA program. So, any questions?
Now, that funding, did that come from our bond?
The funding for the part that was not paid for by the E-rate did come from the bond. Some of it does come from our capital funds too, our district additional assistance. So most of it did come from bond, a little bit from our M&O moved into capital, and then the rest from the E-rate.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I'd just like to say in closing for Mr. Kelly and yourself, I'm truly in awe. I'm glad we had this presentation today, okay? Because I take a step back here as a board member and look to see what you are doing. It's absolutely incredible with the tools that we have given you. That's where I'm going at with this, okay? You are running this district with millions of dollars of technology. It's just like when you have a car, it's the engine. You may have all the accessories and you may have all the bling on this car, but it's not going to move unless you have an engine that runs with trained mechanics. And the two of you on what you do with what we give you, I applaud you and I thank you for the kids in this school district, okay? And when you said, I think you said earlier when we mentioned that the equipment wasn't working and you said, well, that's my responsibility and I want the success. No, it's all of our responsibility to make sure that you have the equipment and the money to make sure that this machine runs properly. And by this presentation today, I've seen a great deal today, and I just want to thank you both for what you do in this district. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Witovich. On a regular basis, we have to make some very difficult choices, and I know that there are times when we haven't funded our technology program the way we should to make choices in different areas. But I can tell you that Mr. Schroep and Mr. Kelly do an incredible job with the funds and the everything that we give them to run their department on. We know that it's not adequate for a school district, but we are very lucky to have those two individuals doing the best they can off the funds that we give them.
And I appreciate the presentation and the information. It's certainly helpful on our side, and I want to, echo what Mr. Witovich said. You guys do a great job, and we do appreciate you. And I mean, you put a lot in perspective what you were dealing with. Technology changes. What's today is different tomorrow. I mean, it changes at the speed of light. And we were dealing with 10-year-old equipment. I didn't even know Wi-Fi was back 10 years ago. It was very limited at best, and you guys have had to do a tremendous amount of work to even try and somewhat get us up to speed. And we all know that it's expensive and it needs to be done, and we try and stay on top of it as much as we can, and trying to figure out what the new latest and greatest is, because by the time the pace of education works, by the time we see that and they say prove it, and then once you prove that this is the way to go, and then we approve funding for it, it's all different again. It's changed, it's outdated. So I appreciate everything you and your staff do, and I know that they do respond, and they do try and help the sites as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and we appreciate that. And I think if we just review some processes and how we can help support and have some better understanding and processes in place, I think that we're getting there, and how we can help you. So thank you so much for this information, for sure, and everything you do.
And Madam President, and if I can just add on, I just had three short things. One, I also want to echo and thank you both for your loyalty and dedication. It's very easy to go to, I see a lot of people come into school districts, get their skills, and then, take their game to Miami Beach or whatever. And the fact that you stick around is, it's benefits Higley. So thank you. And then with E-rate, do we use Nicely Consultant? Are we squeezing every penny we can? Okay, all right, that's good. Well, you don't need to go into details.
I just want to get it on the record. Yes, we did use Nicely Consulting.
Okay, yeah, I know they'll squeeze they're very good at that. And then the last thing is just a question. Maybe you can follow up, Dr. Mallerman. I don't know the numbers. I mean, I've seen the streams that all the devices we purchased, but at our junior highs and high schools, how many devices do we have compared to how many students? Is that a number you guys can maybe get to us? Because if we're really close to one-to-one, we should maybe start to think about going to one-to-one in the, if we can.
President Reese, members of the board, at this time, we are approximately one computer to every 2 students across the district. Now, they're not distributed evenly, so some sites have more computers per student and some have less, but that's something that we're definitely working on. Hopefully by next year, we'll probably be 1.5 to 1, so we're getting closer. Every year, we're getting closer in building that up.
All right, well, so for the devices at our junior highs and high schools, so that are currently existing or we're purchasing, can you send us that? Because I don't think a kindergartner needs a take-home device, so I wouldn't put them in my ratio.
I will get those numbers from Mr. Kelly as far as what we will have by the end of the year, because we just did a large purchase,
Right.
and I will put that in the superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to echo what the board members have already spoken. Thank you very much. I was very enlightened by this presentation. And I want the password. I mean, give me the Wi-Fi. Why don't I have
I
the
don't have the
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi
code?
either. I want the
seriously,
Wi-Fi.
I sit in the Higley parking lot and I can't do anything. So later, okay?
President Reese, members of the board, the one thing that I would really like to reiterate is our IT team will work and get things fixed if they know about it. The hardest part it is for me and for Mr. Kelly and Mr. Schroep to handle is finding out through a secondhand or a back channel that something's not working that we didn't know about. That is embarrassing to me. It is embarrassing to Mr. Kelly. It's embarrassing to Mr. Schroep. So as soon as something happens, we want to know about it immediately so we can take care of it immediately.
Documented process and procedure.
That's in process.
Then hopefully that will help that. And I just wanted to ask that we make a note, because it was mentioned in your presentation. Tonight was about the technology piece, our Wi-Fi, our infrastructure, and the hardware piece. I know we do have an upcoming work study for the curriculum piece for the technology, and I would just like to, because one of the questions asked to Mr. Kelly was about Alex and Redbird. Can we make sure that we know, because my concern is you said you haven't heard any issues with that. Now my thought process goes immediately, can we make sure we're using it? So I think it's probably fixed and works, But my fear is sometimes when things don't work, we quit using them, and then it gets fixed, and we don't go back to using them. So in the curriculum update, can we have that information to make sure, yes, we are using Alex, yes, we are using Redbird, that our teachers didn't get so frustrated because we were having issues with McGraw-Hill and that they quit using it?
I'm going to ask Dr. Schillingberg to talk with his administrators to get that information to me so I can include it in the superintendent's report. But I'm not going to give you an answer if I don't know the truth at this time, so we'll get that information for you.
And just for me, I'm okay just including it with the curriculum technology piece, to have time to go through that and including that in that information session.
Absolutely, we're excited to show you that next month.
I too wanted to thank everyone for their presentation. Everyone kind of jumped in, but I too wanted to thank both of you for your presentation, and of course Dr. Fowler as well earlier. It was very enlightening. I hear a lot of this is, you know, the teacher says it's Wi-Fi, but it might not be Wi-Fi. It might be something else. So thank you so much, and I appreciate that presentation.
Right. If we don't have anything else, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Have a good night.